Hey y'all, it's Jordan from Jordan Budgets. Today we are going to talk about my spending and income for the first week of June. I shared with you guys last week my full rundown of May expenses and income. So we're just gonna take it a little bit slower in this video. I'm going to kind of map out a little more slowly my specific categories, and we're gonna set this up together. So while we start to set this up, we will kind of chat about my income and expenses too, because I think it's a little bit unique because I'm a single mom. All of my income, I don't get any child support or state support. I think it would be wonderful if I did, but I'm just letting you know I don't. So all of my income and resources come from my Etsy shop, my.com, jordanbudgets.com, and this YouTube channel. So that is important to mention because we're about to get into a little bit of a chat of, you know, how my income and expenses has been difficult for me and why I've been kind of tracking and going back to the basics these last, well, since February. February we kind of restarted. This is for June, so I'm just gonna write the month of June up here. This is just a one sheet spread that I created for myself because I'm able to track everything on one spread. I do track in real time in my Hobonichi weeks. There are blank pages. If you don't have a Hobonichi or you've never heard of it, there's just blank pages in the back that are like boxed graphic. I need to figure out what this paper type is called, but I just write myself a little monthly calendar up here, and then I section out my different categories like I'm gonna do on this paper. I think it's worth mentioning that because I don't want you guys to think I'm just doing this at the end of a week. I think it's important to do something like this every single day, or at least every other day. I've gotten in a good routine lately of checking in with my budget and my bank accounts every morning. So it's part of my routine now. It takes me maybe 10 minutes. I find it kind of exciting because it's like an easy task that I know how to complete before my brain is even completely awake. I've just made it a part of my morning routine, and it's, like I said, it's super easy for me. I don't have to even think about it at this point, and I find it kind of exciting because I am checking off a task before, you know, in the morning when you're like, what am I supposed to be doing? I know I should be productive, but I don't know what to do. That is when I check my accounts. I check in with my planner, this page in my planner, and write down any expenses or income that has come in. And by the time I've done that 5-minute task, my brain is more awake. I can think of the next thing I need to do. So it has been very easy to fit it into my schedule. I'm just opening it to my June spread in here. Like I said, I check in with this every morning. So we're just kind of running through this together. It's a little bit of a repeat just because I'm on YouTube. If I weren't checking in with you guys, I wouldn't do it twice, right? But I did want to show you guys how I set this up. We're gonna chat also about my income and some improvements I would like to make as far as being a small business owner and getting my money together. Before we chat about that though, let me just show you. For May, the first was on a Thursday. So I just wrote Thursday or like TH. Second was Friday, so I wrote an F, and I didn't do that every single day, but I just did that the first week. And then I knew this whole column is Thursday, this whole column is my Fridays. So the first for June did happen to be Sunday. So if any of you like require or your brain is more satisfied if it starts on a Saturday or a Sunday, this setup might work for y'all. It doesn't bother me though, because so for May, the Sunday was kind of this middle column. If I wanted to see when, you know, what might be repeat purchases for me on Sunday, I could just line these pages up and see, you know, this column is Sunday expenses. I don't know. It's, again, I'm just in for a one-page simple system at this point as I get back in the tracking habit. So it doesn't always work out this way, but for June, the first is a Sunday, the second Monday, Tuesday. So I'm just going through and writing on here so that I know once I start expenses what's going on. So mentioning that too, you can see like in May, a lot of my expenses are on Tuesday. I don't know why that is. Is that because I tend to get paid on Etsy on Tuesday? So I felt like I had a little more money? Or do I go all weekend not spending anything and then I'm overspending on Tuesday? I don't know. I want to start paying better attention to that, but you know, that's why it's important to know what day of the week it is, because you might see some patterns that you would otherwise miss and maybe those patterns are fine. Maybe you want to modify them. Okay, so June, our June calendar is now set up. We do need to set up our bottom category. So I'm just going to move you guys down. You could use these boxes if you're trying to do something similar. Write out boxes that make sense for you. For me, I like to write bills down here, and I do not track bills in the monthly calendar. This is just for basically everything else. Other, and then income. The only other categories I have are food. The only tracking I do down here though is I write if the food was a fast food expense or groceries. I do track fast food and groceries up here, and then I just tally them or like add them up at the end of the month to make sure they're less than 800, but I kind of keep my eye on it all month just up here in this monthly spread. I'm gonna turn the camera off really quick so I don't waste y'all's time, but I'm just gonna transfer these bills here into this column. Okay, so I've transferred over the bills. We don't need this sheet anymore because really month to month, that's the only thing I need this for. I have been tracking consistently since February. I know what bills I have and exactly how much they're gonna be. I know which ones come out right after the next. Every once in a while it might change like a tiny bit, like one might come out a day before the other, but for the most part, it's exactly the pattern that they come out in, how much they are, and exactly what my bills will be. I'm never surprised at this point by what my bills are and when they come. So I wrote them in order of when I'm gonna need to pay them. The only other thing I need to do with bills, just kind of scooting y'all down, is I have this dual tip, so a light blue and a dark blue all on one pin. I like to highlight them which week they're gonna be due because I do pay my bills as they come at this point. Sometimes I'm ahead, I'm not currently ahead. So I'm just going to highlight, that's week 1. So week 1, I need to pay the mortgage and phone and Hulu. Week 2, I pay this ACC, which is a credit card that I no longer have, but I'm still paying on, of course. Trampoline park for my boys, State Farm, and the car note. So all of that comes out in week 2. So I highlighted it just like the other blue. Then we're going back to the light blue for electric. The only thing during week 3 that I have to pay is electric for $173. And then for the last week of the month, I need to pay debt consolidation, Gab Wireless, which is my boy's phone, and then Netflix. So that is what that color coding system means. If you see me do that in the future, but like not explain myself, that's what's going on. Now let's move into my real expenses and my real income. And income is where we're gonna get a little bit chatty, but let's go ahead and put in the expenses since that should be pretty quick. So for the first week of the month. Now this month does start on a Sunday, but just so you know, typically how I do it is I kind of, the last few days of the month, for example, for May, that would have been the 29th through the 30th. I just ignore those days for the most part. Like if there's an expense, I still want it to fall between like under 800 for food, for example, but I just pretend I have no income, no money. I try not to let myself get paid during those last few days. I am self-employed, so I can kind of do what I want with, I have a little bit more leeway to create my own rules, right? So I always just kind of pretend the 1st through the 7th, no matter if it starts on a Wednesday or a Sunday, the 1st through the 7th is week 1, the 8th through the 14th is always week 2, that's the next 7 days, 15th through 21st is week 3, and 22nd through the 28th is week 4. That's just kind of, you know, borders that I've created for myself. And the 29th through the 31st or the 29th through the 30th or whatever the case might be, I just ignore those days. If we have spending, so be it, but I try not to pay myself or like budget grocery monies for those days. I have to wait till the 1st, the next week in my budget. Does that make sense? So keeping that in mind, I'm going to budget 1st through the 7th. That's what we're gonna sit down and do today. And I am currently low income. I don't have a lot of extra money, so there's really not a ton of spending going on. Groceries I did spend because again, I ignore the 29th through the 31st, so we didn't do any grocery shopping that whole, you know, during that chunk of time. So I was kind of making up for it with this new month's budget. I spent $195 on groceries, and then we did get fast food on the 4th. So we're gonna use the darker pink I like to use the light pink for groceries, and then fast food is the bright pink. It's gonna jump out at us and let me know exactly all the spending we've been doing. And then something else I do keep up with in bills, but just track it down here at the end of the month, is gas and parking for the car. I consider a bill. It's something I can't get around paying. If I really have to say, oh, how much money do I need for my bare bones in a month, I lump gas and parking in with that amount. So that's why it's blue, the light blue, because this was necessity. Gas for the car was $58. I did fill up all the way. And I don't know if you guys remember, but for May, I only spent $25 for gas total. So I think this 58 should get us through the month unless we do a lot of random traveling. But for the most part, a lot of our summer stuff is kind of close by. I say that, but then I think my kids actually have a summer camp that's a little bit far away. It's the only summer camp they have for this summer, and it's in like the middle of the month. So actually I might take that back. We might have a little bit more gas than typical this month, but that's okay. Okay, that's literally all the spending I did for week 1. If we would have spent on, say, like got new swimsuits or got like any stuff, or maybe we went to a birthday party, or I picked up my medicine or something, it would go in this other category down here, and we would have also tracked it up here. But we didn't have any of that for week 1. Very easy to track, very minimal spending. I will go ahead, before we get into income, because I also track that up here and down here, let's talk about the bills we did pay, which also honestly probably influences why we spent so little, because rent and phone was due, right? So we paid mortgage and then phone and Hulu. Hulu we paid on the 2nd. The rent and phone that we pay is $835. We paid that on the 1st. What I do, because this is already highlighted, so I just write the date that it was actually paid and then put a check mark, and that's what reminds me or lets me know like, oh, I actually did pay that. And that was all of our bills week 1. Okay, income, which gets a little more tricky, so I might get a little bit more chatty. So bear with me if you're not here for the chat, but let's just go ahead and get into it. Most people, I won't say most people, but like if you don't have a small business or you don't have varying income for, you know, you have a typical 9 to 5 and you're salaried or you're paid by the hour, you probably have this system a little bit more pegged down than me, and it probably doesn't feel as complicated. Like I said, I get all of my income from Etsy. YouTube will pay me. Every once in a while I do a sponsorship. Most of my income does come from jordanbudgets.com or my Etsy shop. So it's all kind of spread all over the place, and I'm trying to get away from that. Let's see, I got paid on the 2nd, the 4th, and the 6th. I will say I am doing better because all of my incomes don't come straight to my personal account anymore, but my income is so low that I'm still having to pull kind of randomly. I would like to get to the point, and I will say I'm working my way towards getting to this, like none of my business expenses come through my personal money anymore, which is great. That's a huge step in its own. I don't have anybody in my family who has a small business. I really started from zero as far as like the knowledge goes of what in the world I'm doing over here, right? But I am working in the right direction, and none of my business expenses are now cycling through my personal, which is a huge step in its own. However, like I said, my income is still relatively low, so I'm having to pull just when money comes in to be able to cover everything. It's starting to look way better though. I will say that, guys. Like, it's starting to look better. And the goal is to eventually just be pulling around 800 to 1,000 every week, depending on how much I need exactly, because I don't usually need 1,000, but maybe it's a rent week and we need groceries, so I do need it. So the goal is to pull 800 to 1,000, and that's what I pay myself. And then if there's extra in there, either that goes back into the business or it's just staying in the business account. So if I have a lower week, say in the middle of the month, then I still have money to pay myself something consistently. It's not constantly like feast or famine, which is how it's been for these first few years with my business. And I will say, I think that's taken a toll on how I budget. It's taken a toll on, like, it's stressful to live that way. You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting away from that. So I'm saying all of that to say right now you're gonna see, like, I will have at times like this week I got paid 3 times. I think yeah, I'm looking back through May also. It looks like consistently I kind of pay myself 2 to 3 times a week. And that's how it's been. I would like to start tapering that down some and actually pay myself less, pay myself a little bit more at once, and leave some buffer for work expenses or for pulling for myself on a lower week. Does that make sense? So it seems so basic, but honestly, it's something that's been really hard for me to grasp and to execute like in a better way. It's ridiculous. I understand though it sounds like such a basic concept, but it really has been harder for me to do than anything else, I think, as a small business owner. So for week 1, I paid myself 3 times, $337 from Etsy, $600 from my website, jordanbudgets.com. And then I did have a PayPal payment that came through. That's basically like the purchases that people did on jordanbudgets.com, but they used PayPal. It comes out like as a separate payment. If you total that all together, I'm just gonna write down here, income for week 1 was $1,047, which is again a little bit more than I would like to pay myself. I wanna stay between the $800 and $1,000. But that's just kind of how it worked out because I went ahead and took that PayPal money out also. Oh, there is one more thing that I track. I don't track it in my calendar view, but I do just like to put down here cash that I take out. This is basically my savings account, if you want to think of it that way, because you won't see savings anywhere else, but cash is basically my savings. I don't save in my checking or anywhere else. I just like to pull cash, stuff it, forget about it, pretend I don't have that money until or unless I actually need it. Ideally, I'm using it for the thing that I'm saving for, but sometimes, you know, expenses come up and I'm not above pulling my binders if I have to. Like, I'd rather use cash than get a card. So maybe that's why our spending was so low, actually. Our spending was pretty good, but we did have to pay our rent, our phone, and Hulu. And then I pulled $452 to cash stuff. So realistically and honestly, my spending was probably so low because I pulled this money as soon as money hit my bank account and I put anything extra I had towards this. This isn't something that I've been tracking since February like everything else, but I want to start tracking this cash spending because I think it's going to be very motivating to see how well it stacks up when I'm making it a priority. Week 1, I just happened to have a lot of extra money. I honestly could have probably put it towards like business and work stuff, but I did not. So that is the overview of week 1. Let me know in the comments how you guys did the first week of June. And then at the time that I'm filming this, it's actually the 11th. So I should be back pretty soon with a week 2 for June. So you guys can see how I did this week and the income that came in from different places. So that is it for this video. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.